Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about the Heard versus Depp case, or Depp versus Heard. There's actually two cases involved. And when we talk about that, I want to talk specifically about the media's reaction to Depp versus Heard. So I'll have more on that in just a second. Now, it's probably not obvious to people who have a normal life and work every day that there are people in this world whose sole job it is to influence the press. These are PR people. They write press releases, they make phone calls, and a lot of times they're not working on the side of the angels. In fact, they may even be working for the other guy. But the bottom line is they get out there and they try to spin a narrative in a particular way. So I don't know if you have seen any of the takes that some of the other lawyers have done with regard to Depp versus Heard. I think it is certainly worthwhile for you to check out everything that Nate the lawyer has done, and Legal Mindset has done, and Uncivil Law. All three of those channels are very good legal content providers, and I think you'll be entertained by many of the things that they say. And of course, the preeminent authority on Depp versus Heard is Rekieta Law. That's the best channel on YouTube as far as trial coverage goes and commentary. And I don't mean to in any way take anything away from them, and I'm not going to steal their takes on this. I'm just going to tell you that they do good work. Now, what I want to talk about specifically is several media people's attempt to tone down the criticism on social media, specifically YouTube. Now, and Twitter. Twitter and YouTube seem to be the two places where people have really gone after the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp trial. And I think the reason that they have is because both have the ability to display video, and that video can sometimes be very informative. If you, the other place, and this is the place to go if you want humorous content, is TikTok. Because you've got a bunch of people reenacting Amber Heard's testimony and Amber Heard's lawyers. Nobody seems to poke any fun at Johnny Depp's lawyers, which is kind of funny. The tabloids seem to be enthralled with the idea that Camille Vasquez, who is the lawyer that's representing Johnny and will no doubt today be cross-examining Amber Heard, Camille Vasquez and Johnny seem to get along, and apparently that's caused people to generate some rumors. But enough of that. An author whose name I'm not going to mention because I don't want her to get any of the publicity associated with it, basically came out and said that all of the people who are criticizing Heard's testimony online should believe all women, that they should believe until there is concrete evidence that disproves her testimony. And to be quite honest, that's just nonsense. That is the same thing as saying believe all police officers. Well, we know that sometimes police officers stretch the truth, and sometimes they flat out lie, right? Not many of them, not most of them, but some of them will do that and have done that. We know that women lie, we know that men lie, we know that there is not a person that walks into a courtroom that hasn't told a lie. And so to suggest that you should just automatically believe all women when they claim domestic abuse or sexual violence, that's just unrealistic, and it does a disservice to the justice system. In fact, the jury is supposed to view all testimony critically. One of the things that you will see repeated in Missouri law quite frequently is The jury heard the testimony. They were free to believe any of it or all of it or none of it. So, for example, a plaintiff brings a case against a trucking company. Their case is the driver was speeding and in the wrong lane. The truck driver says, I wasn't speeding and I was in the right lane. And the evidence comes in, and at the end of the day, they find for the plaintiff. And on appeal, the defense will put before the court all of the contrary evidence and say, how could the jury have made this terrible mistake? And again, the court will come back and say the jury heard the evidence, they reached the decision they reached. And unless there was an error in admitting certain parts of that evidence, that's the way the case is going to stand. And the reason that's the case is because the jury is the judge of the facts. They are the ones who decide whether somebody's telling the truth or not. They are the ones who decide whether or not there was a tort. They are the ones in this case who will decide whether Amber Heard was abused, whether Johnny Depp was abused, whether Depp wins, or whether Heard wins. Finally, the people who publish and who have covered this trial in the Legacy Media have just done a very bad job of it. And one of the reasons we know they've done a bad job of it is because Twitter has beaten the heck out of it, and so has YouTube. And the reason people are turning to Twitter and YouTube is because they feel like the Legacy Media are lying to them. And so I think it's worthwhile for anybody who's interested in this case to watch the actual testimony and reach your own conclusions. I think the low light of the case was when Amber Heard said, my dog stepped on a bee, and made that stupid face. What was up with that? In fact, almost all of her facial expressions and her gestures were aimed at the jury. She'd turn and, model for the jury. And I think that if you do that, jurors see it. And they are not starstruck. Those are Virginia jurors. They're sitting there going, okay, so, you looked at me, so what? It really is important, I think, for lawyers to sit down with clients beforehand and say, don't stretch the truth, stick to what you know, and tell a coherent story. If you watch the entire trial, all of the video in this case, it would be pretty easy to conclude that Amber Heard's story is not coherent. Does that mean it's not true? No. Am I calling Amber Heard a liar? Absolutely not. I'm saying you shouldn't believe all women and you shouldn't believe all men, and you should make a judgment based on the evidence. And sometimes people under stress do really stupid things. And sometimes you have to know that too. So that's my take on Depp versus Heard versus Depp. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe. You know the stuff to do. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate your comments. And if you would, again, if you haven't already, please go over here and click on the subscribe icon so you can be notified whenever we do a video on any topic. Thank you so much for watching. Have a terrific day.